About 8 days ago, Wizard101 put out an update that will probably go down as one of its most unpopular changes ever. And you know what I'm talking about. You probably watched the video. We now finally have an update on this crazy change that they did. There's actually a public test room Discord server where they open for people from all over the community to give feedback. And in this, a lot of the designers that, are behind the changes in this game, they actually make statements. And this one is a big one, right? The AoE change that everyone found to be crazy, it got reverted. So last week, what was in test room was that if I wanted to use Meteor Strike, I would have to split the damage per individual I was hitting with the Meteor Strike. If I hit 3 people with this Meteor Strike, it would do a third of the damage to each. It was kind of awful. That change is reverted in test room. However, even though AoEs are back to normal, meaning they're allowed in PvP, they don't have to be divided in order to do damage, what this looks like more than anything is more of a delay of a future balancing change. So in case you guys aren't in the Discord server, right, the first statement was that they are reverting the changes, meaning AoEs, they're just like we've always had them for now. But the other statements, in my opinion, are more important, right? This actually, tells us the future of this whole situation because a lot of people feel very strongly about this. We do have confirmation that they are still going to rework multi-target spells. And these spells are going to be reworked specifically for advanced combat, right? And this is exactly what they, I guess, experimented earlier, 8 days ago. We're talking about raids, we're talking about PvP, we're talking about any sort of, extra, challenge combat sigil that they add in the future. Any of those things, we will have AoEs that don't act like what we're used to. It looks like this delay will be more towards, when they have team PvP ready, which I assume is going to be in an update or two. So it is still kind of around the corner. And potentially the most illuminating comment of all, these spells are simply too powerful, regardless of whether you use it against an AI or a human. And the purpose of this ban was to get feedback so that when they do team PvP, they have the feedback that they need to actually do this thing right. Now, to me, this opens up a lot more questions and answers, and that's probably, that was inevitable. And here's the thing. The bottom line is, if you're a very casual player and you just want to, do the mobs and you want to, farm just the main storyline bosses, I don't think there will be a real AoE change that affects you. However, I think the game is evolving much past that, right? There's raids, and there's PvP. And though it's still in its early stages, I think the real impact of this AoE change is really going to be on these advanced combat sigils. I've made a couple videos on these, but in case you guys just don't know anything about them, basically they have challenge modes on these boss fights that they want to add. And the idea is they, follow advanced combat rules, meaning if something is PvP banned or acts different in PvP, that's the rules you have to follow for that sigil. And the idea is you have that rule set that's advanced enough where if you beat this boss under this, harder rule set, you can get drops easier. To give you an idea of what they're going for when it comes to these advanced combat sigils, in my opinion, this is the main reason that Feint got PvP banned. This is something that very few people have actually talked about, but I think it's a big deal, right? Normally, when you do a boss fight, you have probably, if it's allowed, you have someone faint, you have someone hit, you call it a day. But the idea is, right, you can turn the sigil to a challenge mode and do a mode where you can't use spells like Feint, and you get advantages as a result. I think for the vast majority of people that don't want to farm, mindlessly and endlessly for gear, this offers an opportunity to prevent that by beating the boss in creative and unique ways. And while that's all good and dandy, I feel like the AoE change makes it very hard to do anything against some of these bosses. Let's take an example of a boss that is extremely grindy. To get all the gear from the final boss of Novus takes literally forever, I'll just be honest. In this fight, you actually get polymorphed into another form. You have to defeat one of the 4 beautiful gentlemen / ladies, I don't know what they identify as, sitting in front of you. And after you defeat one of them, you basically, the strat is you AoE the remaining 3. Even in a fight like this, where you spend so much time polymorphed, not having AoEs and getting an increased drop rate because you don't have AoEs, it would never work out because you would spend so much more time killing the remaining 3 that the drop rates would have to be double, if not triple, what they already are to justify that, playing under that rule set. The TLDR, whether they do this change today or in a few months, this change will matter a lot for the future of this game. What I did find very interesting is that the Dragoon amulets, which give AoEs that are much above the damage curve of most schools, are now banned in PvP, and I think this is going to stay. Meaning these are not going to be able to be used in raids, and right now these are probably the best AoEs that you could possibly ever use in raids, right? So this is still a big nerf to doing stuff that's, meant get as advanced combat quickly with AoEs. Adding on to the fact that Dragoon AoEs are, you know, still banned in PvP, I guess they also decided to keep Earthquake permanently banned in PvP because it completely and infinitely removes stuff, and I feel like that's also way out of value. Similarly, Enfeeble, Dimension Shift, and Shatter, which are also spells that have infinite removal. Enfeeble has blades, Dimension Shift can infinitely remove stuff and swap it over to your minion, and Shatter is infinite removal of shields, right? All of those are also banned in PvP in Test Realm, and that change will make its way to Live Realm, presumably. To me, the fact that they kept the Dragoon amulet hits banned, you know, the really good ones, and the fact that they're PvP banning infinite removal spells, what it really tells me is that they're having a serious conversation about value in this game. And we've already seen a taste of that from, you know, like, you know, just them saying that, you know, these spells are very overpowered, but it makes sense, right? Like, this spell existing makes it so that you would never ever use anything above 7 pips in PvE. You would never need to do it. Fire Dragon does almost 1,000 damage, right? For 7 pips. And you would think, oh, 1,000 damage, that's not crazy, you know, it's an AoE, whatever. But let's say that you were to, like, go through all the effort of setting up a Gambit to do extra damage on a fire. Get 2 heals on yourself so you can do 1365 damage, like with an Infernal Load. Get 2 overtimes on your opponent to do 1300 damage on your opponent, right? You could go through all that effort and still have more value on more people for the same number of pips without any setup because Fire Dragon is so good. If we were to see combat actually, you know, like, you know, force us into something outside of AoEs, I think some sort of AoE nerf is the only way to do it. I just think the divide thing that they did last week, the thing that, you know, everyone was kind of annoyed about, it makes the game too inconvenient for it to be realistic in scenarios outside of standard combat. I think they should do what they've done with other, you know, like, you know, Spellman pats and make it so that AoEs can do a lot, but maybe they can only do so much if you have a condition, right? So maybe Fire Dragon starts off at a lower base rate, but you could work the value up to this if you happen to, like, I don't know, on a fire, maybe overtime your opponent, you know? Maybe like, you know, Scald would be a cool way to combo into this, right? Maybe you could do a little Scald into this so that this does extra damage. I'll be honest, even though that does technically still nerf AoEs, I still feel like if they were to go any route at all, that just seems better and it seems more intuitive for most people, right? It would be like, oh, let me, like, people would just pack some spells to set up the AoE and then do it, right? It wouldn't change things that much. I feel like the dividing thing just went too far because you're never really gonna use it over your single hits anyways, so it makes them, like, you know, the AoEs useless, and I think that's not a direction they necessarily want to go. All in all, y'all, I know that people have a lot of strong feelings about this, and I still don't know how I feel about the AoE changes. On one hand, I love the ease at which you can progress through the game with AoEs. On the other hand, the past few worlds have just been me AoEing a bunch of bosses and barely doing anything different. I'd be down for a change if they can handle that change in a way that doesn't feel inconvenient to me as a player. And I do feel like most people feel that way, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys feel in the comments. I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. I thought people wanted to hear about this because this is a very big, like, change of, you know, change of scenario. Let me know how you guys have reacted to this. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.